Guideline 6. Provide opportunities for the development of executive functions.
Interact with accessible materials and tools. At the highest level of the human capacity to act with skill are so-called executive functions. Associated with networks that are located in the prefrontal cortex, these abilities allow human beings to overcome impulsive and short-term reactions and set long-term goals, plan effective strategies to achieve those goals, monitor their progress and modify strategies as needed. In short, they allow students to take advantage of their environment. Of fundamental importance for educators is to know that executive functions are related to working memory. In fact, executive capacity is drastically reduced when 1. Executive functioning must be aimed at managing lower-level skills and responses that are not automatic or harmonious, so they absorb higher-level functions. 2. Executive capacity itself is reduced due to a sort of higher-level disability or the lack of speed in the use of executive strategies. The UDL paradigm typically involves a dual effort to expand executive capacity. 1. Raising lower-level skills so that they require less process management, and 2. Building higher-level executive skills and strategies so that they are more effective and advanced. Previous guidelines have addressed lower-level components. These guidelines address ways to provide solutions for executive functions themselves. Guide to the choice of appropriate objectives. Learn to set ambitious and achievable goals. It cannot be assumed that students set appropriate goals to guide their work. However, the answer should not be to provide students with objectives. Such a short-term remedy is ineffective for developing new skills or strategies in any student. It is therefore important that students develop the ability to set effective goals. The UDL paradigm provides graduated supports to learn to set personal goals that are stimulating and realistic there. Tips. Provide instructions and tools to estimate efforts, resources, and difficulties. Provide models or examples of the process and the product when defining objectives. Provide guides and checklists for setting the same goals. Print and display goals and programs in a prominent place. Support the planning and development of strategies. Make a reasonable plan for achieving the objectives. Once a goal is set, students and effective problem solvers plan a strategy, including the tools they will use to achieve that goal. For young children in any setting, older students in a new discipline, or any student with one of the disabilities that compromise executive functions, for example, intellectual disabilities, the strategic planning phase is often omitted and takes place through trial and error. To help students become more strategic and able to plan, a multiplicity of possibilities are necessary, such as cognitive bumps that push them to stop and think, graduate aids that facilitate them in actually implementing strategies, commitment to decision-making with the guidance of competent tutors. Tips. Enter instructions to stop and think before acting in addition to providing adequate space. Introduce instructions to show and explain your work, for example, portfolio review, artistic criticism. Provide checklists and project planning templates to understand the problem, set priorities, sequences, and schedules of steps. Incorporate coaches or tutors who guide the process aloud. Provide guides for fragmenting long-term goals into achievable short-term goals. Facilitate the management of information and resources. Support organization and memory using flexible tools and processes. One of the limitations of executive function is that imposed by the limits of so-called working memory. This notebook for storing blocks of information that can be accessed for understanding and solving problems is rather limited for each student and even more severely limited for many students with cognitive disabilities and learning difficulties. As a result, many of these students seem disorganized, forgetful, and unprepared. Where, in a lesson, the working memory capacity is not adequate from a constructive point of view, it is important to provide a variety of internal supports and external organizational aids, just like those used by managers, to keep information organized and in mind. Tips: provide graphic organizers and templates for collecting data and organizing information. Introduce instructions for categorization and systematization. Provide checklists and note-taking guides. Improve the ability to track progress. Analyze growth over time and how to build on it. Learning cannot happen without feedback, and this means that students need a clear picture of the progress they are or are not making. When evaluations and feedback do not provide instructions, or when they are not provided to students in a timely manner, learning cannot change because students do not know what to do otherwise. This lack of knowledge on what to improve may make some students seem unchangeable, careless, or unmotivated. For these students at all times, and for most students, it is important to ensure that the options can be customized to provide clearer, more timely, informative, and understandable feedback. It is especially important to provide educational feedback that allows students to effectively monitor their progress, and to use that information to guide your efforts in your business. Tips: ask questions to guide self-control and reflection. Show representations of progress, e.g. before and after photos, graphs and diagrams showing progress over time, process portfolios. Ask students to identify the type of feedback or advice they are looking for. Use models that guide self-reflection on quality and completeness. Provide differentiated models of self-assessment strategies, e.g. role-playing games, video reviews, peer feedback. Use evaluation checklists, evaluation columns, and more examples of performance prototypes, student work with comments.